Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar and welcome back to Guest Indonesia Digital Series, a series of activities from Guest Indonesia 2020 event. My name is Farah Karima as your MC and present with me today as a speaker, Mr. Richard Miller, grade 6 science teacher at Jakarta Intercultural School for 9 years and 15 years of teaching science in America. Mr. Richard Miller has degrees in mathematics and science and a master degree in instructional technology. He has presented at Guest Indonesia for 3 years in a row and was an early promoter of the conference. He also works with communities in need in Jakarta, including designing masks for manufacturing as early as last February. He has also worked with local school offering professional development for Indonesian middle school teachers, and he considers Indonesia to be his home. And today, Mr. Richard Miller will be presenting a Zoom Science Classroom, the ultimate setup and doing science lab synchronously. And now, without further ado, I will turn the time over to Mr. Richard Miller.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction. Now, I do apologize, belum bisa bahasa Indonesia, so I have a very good friend that will be translating. If you'd like to introduce.
Hi, Devita dan kamera Susi.
And Susie on the camera. So if we're going to step over here, we're going to take a look at a few things. Now, with the Zoom sessions that have had to happen because of the pandemic and the distance learning, I've tried to come up with some ideas that would work best to serve my students.
Dengan adanya Zoom system, karena adanya pandemi, jadi kita berusaha untuk berinteraksi dengan siswa sekolah.
Now, for my students, I want them to be able to see what we're doing in class and to make it a better environment. So we're going to come over here to take a look. Don't translate that. Okay. Okay. Here is the ultimate Zoom setup.
Ini adalah Zoom setup.
Okay. So what I have in this case is my screen that I will be working with.
Ini adalah laptop screen yang akan saya bekerja dengan ini.
Okay. I have my screen where I will place up to 25 students' faces.
Saya punya monitor yang bisa memuat 25 murid.
I have a screen that I keep track of my information.
Dan monitor yang bisa memberikan informasi untuk saya.
And I have a second login so that I can see what the students see. And that's a camera on a tripod.
Dan kamera yang kedua untuk bisa melihat interaksi saya dengan murid.
Now coming back to me, this might seem extreme for your setup. In closer, please. This might seem extreme for your setup, but many of you already have a television. It's a simple dongle, little attachment that you can now take from your laptop and connect directly to your 32-inch TV. Now, why I use the 32-inch TV, I can see the detail in the students' faces.
Ini terlihat ekstrim dengan menggunakan apa yang namanya? Dongle. Tapi screen layar besar ini bisa untuk melihat secara detail murid-murid saya.
So I can see if Johnny is crying. I can see if Susie is being distracted. I can see if Paka Goose might be bored with our lesson. And of course, we have Dewi, who might be daydreaming. And we have a kucing.
Saya bisa melihat secara detail murid-murid saya seperti Joni sedang menangis, Susi sedang diganggu oleh adiknya, atau Dewi sedang berangan-angan, atau murid yang lain sedang melamun. Jadi bisa secara detail.
Now, one other item that I use often is a headset so that the students can hear me, and I use this as wireless so I can walk around my home or my office.
Salah satu lagi yang saya gunakan adalah wireless yang bisa saya pakai kemana saja.
Okay. The final item, and this one is very important, is proper lighting for you and for your students.
Ini hal yang sangat penting adalah lampu cahaya untuk supaya kita terlihat lebih jelas, agar jika ada backlight dari murid, itu tidak akan mengganggu kita.
I will be honest, I learned this one from TikTok,
Saya mau jujur bahwa saya belajar dari TikTok,
and that is the addition of a beauty light.
ini adalah edisi dari lampu yang cantik.
So when I work with my students, part of it is that I make sure that I can see their faces. I have them close the windows behind them, and they have to have a lighting source in front with a window closed behind.
Ketika saya berbicara dengan para murid saya bisa melihat murid saya secara jelas dengan lampu ini, karena murid-murid memerlukan cahaya yang terang.
Now, the final item for my setup is my paperwork. Everything easy to find, as well as student records on a desk here, but you can see the scheduling listed here.
Yang tidak kalah penting lagi adalah jadwal-jadwal saya taruh di sini, mulai dari jadwal harian, mingguan, dan sehingga saya bisa tahu apa pekerjaan dari murid-murid saya.
Okay. Now, we're not all just about sitting at a computer screen and talking to the students. We have been developing some new skills for our students.
Kita tidak hanya duduk di sini berbicara di depan laptop, tapi kita mengembangkan sistem untuk para murid-murid.
And we're going to demonstrate those for you right now. We're going to be heading over to my kitchen/laboratory.
Kita akan pergi sekarang ke laboratorium, dapur laboratorium.
Okay, so once I've finished with my students here, I'm going to take my laptop and walk to the kitchen. Now, anytime I'm doing a lab in the kitchen, I need to make sure I have on my lab coat and my Indonesian colors. We're going to take a look at some lab activities that can be done synchronously. My assistant again, if you would step in, please.
Yeah.
If you'd like to translate that they're going to do the lab synchronously and what that means.
Kita akan melakukan lab sinkronisasi, di mana bersama-sama melakukan sinkronisasi bersama-sama dengan para murid di saat yang bersamaan.
Now, look, I'm going to have 20 students doing the exact same lab while I watch them on Zoom. And that's really a tricky part.
Saya punya 20 siswa yang melakukan sinkronisasi bersamaan dengan saya, dan ini adalah bukan hal yang mudah.
Your students will often tell you they do not have the supplies.
Murid-murid Anda mungkin mengatakan bahwa mereka tidak punya sumber-sumbernya, bahan-bahannya.
And your job is to design a lab activity with supplies that they can have at home.
Tugas Anda adalah untuk mengatakan bahwa mereka punya supply tersebut yang ada barang-barang di rumah.
So in this particular case, we're going to investigate the properties of density. All science teachers have done this lab.
Kasus ini kita akan membicarakan tentang massa jenis atau kepadatan.
So your students will say they don't have supplies. Let's take a look at some supplies that they probably have in their house. They're going to need a small glass.
Murid-murid Anda mungkin bilang tidak punya, tapi kita lihat apa yang kita punya. Kita perlu gelas kecil.
They're going to need a water bottle that they've cut the top off of.
Botol dari air isi ulang yang dipotong atasnya.
They're going to need dish soap.
Sabun cuci piring.
They're going to need
Kecap.
ketchup manis. Ketchup manis. Okay. not American ketchup, Indonesian ketchup. This stuff is really good, by the way. Okay, they're going to need that, or pancake syrup if they like
sirup
pancake,
pancake,
or
madu,
honey, madu.
Madu.
I know madu. I know some bahasa. Hand sanitizer. We
hand sanitizer,
have water,
air,
and I've colored it to help us.
dan sudah dikasih warna
And our final item is oil.
dan minyak.
Now you can find this in any Indonesian home.
Dan kalian bisa menemukannya di setiap rumah di Indonesia.
Now, if you're interested in, we will give you my email address and I will send you the lab that I use, but we're going to just give you a quick demonstration of what you can do with your students synchronously.
Kalau Anda tertarik, saya akan memberikan email saya dan saya akan siap untuk membantu kalian. Yang sekarang akan kita lakukan adalah sinkronisasi secara cepat.
So when my students first do their lab, if they have a laptop, they must elevate to keep it away from any spills.
Kalau mereka mempunyai laptop, mereka harus meletakkan buku atau bantalan lain untuk laptop supaya tetap aman.
And what I try to do is I have my students face their cameras down to their work area so that when they're working, I can watch from my laptop to see what they're doing in this session.
Yang saya lakukan adalah kalau para siswa meletakkan laptop seperti ini sehingga Mr. Richard bisa melihat apa yang mereka kerjakan.
Now, for those students that don't have a laptop and only have their handphone,
buat murid yang tidak punya laptop dan hanya menggunakan handphone,
they can still have their handphone on the Zoom session and then the teacher can still watch.
Mereka tetap bisa menggunakan Zoom dari handphone dan gurunya tetap bisa melihat.
Okay, now we're going to show you a quick demonstration of what happens. Now, if you want to do it as a simple one, follow these instructions.
Kalau Anda ingin melakukan yang sederhana, percobaan sederhana ini, ikuti petunjuk berikut.
We're going to compare two liquids.
Kita akan membandingkan dua cairan,
Dishwashing hand soap
sabun cuci piring,
and pancake syrup.
dan sirup pancake.
I don't want to use my Indonesian ketchup because it's so good.
Oke. Saya tidak mau pakai kecap karena kecapnya enak banget.
So we'll actually use a glass in this case. We're going to add our dishwashing soap first.
Masukkan sabun cuci piring yang pertama-tama.
And then we're going to add, tilting the glass sideways, we're going to add our pancake syrup.
Masukkan sirup pancake. Perlahan.
And going down so you can actually see the difference. And you would see that the dishwashing is above the pancake syrup.
Dan bisa dilihat bahwa perbedaannya bahwa sabun cuci piring berada di atas sirup pancake.
You see it? Okay. Now, many times students will tell you it's because of the order you put it in. Back to me, please. What you can do instead is ask them, what can you do to change this experiment? They're going to say, put it in the other order. So last time we put the syrup in first. Yes? Yes. No, we put the dishwashing.
Dishwasher first.
Oh, okay. We put the dishwashing in first, right?
Yeah.
So we got to change it. We're going to go pancake syrup.
Sekarang adalah pancake syrup.
And
Baru sabun cuci
dishwashing syrup. And we can see that there is layers between the two. Now this lesson, I'm sorry.
Kita lihat bahwa tetap terjadi perbedaan yang sama walaupun sabun cuci piring diletakkan yang bukan yang pertama tapi yang kedua.
Now, this lesson is dealing with particles and density. So at this point, your prompt for your students, your question for your students.
Um, Can you repeat?
Oh, it's fine. So at this point as a teacher, your question for your students
Pada poin ini adalah pertanyaan Anda untuk para murid,
will be, why does this happen?
kenapa ini bisa terjadi?
Okay. Then you can have them try other liquids.
Dan mereka bisa mencoba cairan yang lain.
And in this case, we will try water with oil.
Dan dalam kasus ini kita akan mencoba air dan minyak.
There's my oil.
Ini minyaknya dan air.
I tilt my glass so I can pour it slowly.
Taruh air pelan-pelan.
And again, ask your students, why does this happen?
Dan lagi tanya siswa Anda, kenapa ini bisa terjadi?
So up here, now we started with 5 different liquids.
Kita memulai dengan 5 cairan yang berbeda.
You can have them design out a testing system. How would they test one versus the other?
Kalian bisa mengetes para siswa bagaimana mereka membedakan satu dengan lainnya.
How would they test pancake syrup with oil?
Bagaimana mereka mencoba sirup pancake dan minyak, misalnya.
Okay. So once they've done their testing and they've devised a system, have them make a prediction. If they put it all into one container, what would the order that they should put it in for the layers to form?
Mereka bisa mengembangkan sistemnya bagaimana apa yang terjadi apabila semua cairan tersebut diletakkan di tempat yang sama, dijadikan satu.
Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and try some of these, but I'm going to show you what happens if the student makes a mistake.
Saya akan coba ini dan menunjukkan apabila siswa melakukan kesalahan.
Okay. They're going to pretty quickly guess that the pancake syrup is on the bottom because it's the thickest. There's something going on with those particles.
Mereka akan mengira pancake sirup diletakkan yang pertama karena kekentalannya.
And once they put their pancake syrup in, they might want to try their Indonesian ketchup.
Mereka juga mungkin mau coba kecap Indonesia.
Now they're going to have to identify the different layers.
Sekarang mereka harus mengidentifikasi perbedaan garis.
Okay. Now they might say, oh, it's the dish soap that goes next. And then they might think water goes next.
Mereka akan berpikir mungkin air selanjutnya.
Oh, this one's upstairs. Then they might think the oil goes next.
Dan selanjutnya mereka mungkin berpikir adalah minyak.
So when you get a final product, it should look a little more like this than this.
Ketika kita gabungkan 5 produk, akan terlihat seperti ini atau ini.
Okay, so now going back to your students, how can they explain what's happening here And a big clue for the particles is there's one more inside the glass that they didn't see.
Sekarang kembali lagi ke para murid, bagaimana mereka bisa melihat kenapa ini bisa terjadi, bahwa ada satu partikel yang kurang.
So they would have to understand that the air is above the oil.
Udara, mereka harus mengerti bahwa udara itu berada di atas minyak.
And they would have to understand particle spacing. Having them demonstrate that is your next point.
Memberikan mereka waktu untuk mendemonstrasikannya adalah hal yang penting.
Now, for myself, when I'm demonstrating particles for students, I have them use their fists. And those fists represent particles.
What?
I have the students represent particles with their fists.
Okay.
Fists.
Ya. Dalam kasus saya murid-murid saya harus melakukan ini dengan tangan mereka sendiri. Maksudnya mereka melakukan sendiri.
So then I would say the pancake syrup is at the bottom. How close would those particles be to each other?
Ketika saya meletakkan sirup pancake di paling dasar, bagaimana partikel itu bisa dekat satu dengan yang lainnya?
And they'll start to figure pretty quickly that those particles have to be pretty close together.
Partikel tersebut harus dekat satu sama lain.
Our next one in this particular one is our water. So if this is the particles for the syrup,
partikel yang selanjutnya adalah air. Jadi kalau partikel yang ini adalah sirup,
what would the particles in the water be like?
Apa partikel dalam air itu yang akan terlihat? Seperti apa?
Little further apart. The particles would be further apart.
Partikelnya akan menjauh.
Okay. Then, what about in the oil that's above the water? What would those particles look like?
Bagaimana dengan oil, dengan minyak yang berada di atas partikel tersebut? Apa yang akan terjadi?
And those would be even further apart.
Itu akan lebih jauh lagi.
Finally, we have air on top.
Pada akhirnya kita punya udara di paling atas.
And those particles must be even further apart.
Dan partikel itu akan semakin menjauh.
Now, this was just a quick demonstration of density in a synchronous classroom.
Ini adalah sinkronisasi yang cepat di dalam lab saya.
What, as a teacher, what I do
sebagai seorang guru, apa yang saya lakukan adalah
is I monitor each member in the Zoom session.
Saya memonitor setiap member yang berada di dalam Zoom saya.
What question does Papa Goose have?
Pertanyaan-pertanyaan apa yang ada dari mereka?
What question might Dewi have?
Pertanyaan apa yang mungkin Dewi punya?
Okay. And answer those questions with, what do you think is happening?
Dan dijawab dengan apa yang menurut kalian akan mungkin terjadi.
Allowing them to explain to me what they see.
Mempersilakan mereka untuk melihat apa yang akan terjadi.
Are we out of time? No, we're still finishing. Other ones that you can do: earthquakes, really cool, sinking objects, floating objects. There's so much you can do in science. Please love science. And if you have questions, email me. Oh, that's your alarm? Oh, I'm still talking. Her alarm or our alarm? That's yours.
Yes.
Okay. So we're still together. I'm sorry. I thought that was our alarm for running out of time. Let's go back to that. You can, a lab that we, well, wait for the alarm to shut off. I do apologize. We're having to do this in one take, people. This is fun. Cool. I do apologize for that. Hey, that's what one take's all about. Other labs that we can do with this, I have students build earthquake towers. Okay. All they have to do is take 2 water bottles. I don't have a second one. They'll put their, let me move some items out of the way. Okay. So they'll take their 2 water bottles, put a platform on top of it, and then stack some cans or bottles. Then move the table back and forth and watch what happens to the building. But with the power of observation, they should say exactly where the building had a problem. It shouldn't just say, oh, it fell over. Where did it fall over? Oh, too much? Okay. So that would be an earthquake tower, and then they have to make corrections. Do they make the building taller, shorter, wider? Do they connect everything back together when they make that earthquake tower? Other lab activities that you can do are observations, the powers of observations. Have your students go out, use their Zoom time to make observations of what they see in the world. Have them come back to you, point to what they see, and tell you why it is that way. Now, the final item for today is, together as educators, we learn from each other. And I'm really proud of my time in Indonesia and what I've learned here in Indonesia. If any of you have an idea or want to share an example, please reach out to me. We will supply you with my email address. I'd love to see what you are doing, because together we are more creative than just one person. Can you try that? Repeat.
Ya, em, saya sangat senang bekerja di Indonesia dan dengan bersama-sama kita bisa berbuat lebih baik lagi. Kalau ada pertanyaan, kalian bisa mengirimkan email kepada saya dan saya yakin ini semua bisa berkembang menjadi lebih baik.
Yeah. And now, once again, I do apologize for it only being in one take. I've always been part of GESS, and they do an amazing job. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope you've learned something, and please send me something because I want to learn too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard Miller. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and we hope everyone have learned and enjoyed this amazing presentation. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you at the next Guest Indonesia Digital Series. And to get a complete information, please contact us at marketing@tarsus.co.id and follow our conference stream for 2 days, 4 to 5 November 2020. Stay tuned and don't miss it.